Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. We're going to start out today with one of Houston's most prolific activists. We're going to talk a little bit about what I call the imprisonment of innocent children. Neil will be able to give us a more complete view of that, but we are going to get busy right away because I want to cover a whole lot of stuff. After Neil is done, we have to cover some issues about Republicans and what's going on and how they're dealing with the poor, how they're dealing with quite a bit of stuff. This is important, and most important it is for our Republican brothers and sisters, because they would have you believe that they are the family values party, the party that's looking out for you, the party that's doing all these things to make things better for you. A lot of Democrats know some of this. A lot of Democrats just are Democrats. But what we want are informed citizens. And more importantly, I need to hear from my Republican brothers and sisters that are listening. And I need you, this show, to send it off to others as well. This is imperative. I implore you. But anyway, without any further ado, I'm here with El Señor Neil Aquino. Neil, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, absolutely. We weren't able to get the video feed, and we should have started a little bit early to make sure that your machine was up to the right parameters to connect. But that's all right. We always have a backup plan. I mean, that is always what it's all about. Make sure that you have a backup plan. Anyway, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm looking at that picture you have of me there. That's in WAIF, Cincinnati, Ohio, a great community radio station. I'm at me there.
I didn't realize that was in Cincinnati. I thought that was right here in Houston, Texas.
No, I've got a friend, and when I go home a couple times a year, he has me on, and it's WAIF FM 88.3, a great community radio station. It works all on donations and great community voice for about 40 years in Cincinnati.
Well, you know what? That is what we need, because, I mean, more and more we have to be talking about having community, radio community, sources community, media, period. And I'm not only talking community, I mean progressive media out there really informing our folks, because as it turns out, man, our folks, it's not, people sit down there and think people just love voting against their own interests. That's not the issue. The issue is people are so misinformed. People are so ill-informed. And, having folks like yourself out there doing the work that you're doing every day, beating the pavement for political activism, and other folks out there like our great warriors here in Harris County, those are the things that we need. But anyhow, you came on here to tell me a little bit about what's going on with Trump's evil and children. Why don't you take the floor?
Well, an issue has been what's been termed the baby jail at 419 Emancipation, and it was just named Emancipation not long ago, and so there was a permit requested for initially little children whom were whether they were separated from their families or unaccompanied, whatever the status might be, and the city, this was last year, and the city, to its credit, did resist that permit, but then Southwest Key, the proprietor, sued, and then I guess a basic agreement was reached, and so 16 and 17-year-olds were going to come into the place, and the question was when will those kids come? And those kids are now there. So, and that's been discussed by a member of the mayor's staff. So that is a common knowledge, and it's important to know that that facility now has children in it.
Now, isn't it true that that was sort of done under the radar? Because as it turns out, everybody thought that maybe it just wasn't going to happen, or you weren't quite sure what it was going to be like. And it turns out now that, well, by gosh, it has happened.
Well, it has happened. You know, it has been difficult throughout the process to get information from our city officials. You didn't hear about it for a few months, and then actually a little bit off message, Congresswoman, or maybe she was a candidate at the time, but Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia made a tweet about it, which sort of revived the issue. This was last year. And then after months of silence about the issue, the mayor said, no, we're seeking to delay the permit. We're seeking to delay the permit. And we oppose the little children. So what happened was, after they reached the agreement that it was going to be 16 and 17-year-olds, the mayor, they say they didn't change their tune, but they did. What they basically were saying was, well, it's not little children anymore. But then if you ask them, are they children, since they're not 18, they sort of hem and haw. And so it's kind of like when we have people who get into these incidents with police, adolescents, we other them. So they're not children, they're not adults. Well, what are they? So we now have these 16 and 17 years old, and many of them may be, not that the whole Trump immigration policy isn't a horror, but many of them may be, could be, the children who have been forcibly separated and from their families. And there's an NBC News report that came out yesterday or today addressing specifically the issue that the Trump administration is not able to reconnect these forcibly separated
that
children.
Came out today. In fact,
with their families.
They made it real. That was one of the big things on Morning Joe this morning. In fact, while I was doing the stepper, not the stepper, the treadmill, that is what they were talking about. And they were talking. I mean, for all practical purposes, they've lost a lot of parents. A lot of these kids don't know who their parents are, and this is from a first world country that's effecting this. I just can't believe that we would do something like that, and that is exactly what we've done.
That is exactly what we've done, and it is important. You know, I have been going down to that 419 emancipation facility, sometimes on my own, just to give some witness to the place, and also there have been a number of protests there. I think there's going to be a protest there. It hasn't been formally planned, but I think there's going to be an event there next Thursday to talk about it, and that details about it that will come out. But it was important to give witness to the place. It was important it remains important for us to continue to hold our elected officials morally accountable if you have a Trump immigration policy that separates children, unlimited detentions in terms of time. Not only do you have the wrong done to the immigrant and migrant persons, but you have emerging threats to our own civil liberties. You start to have detention camps and processes where there's not legal recourse. Separation of families becomes a norm. And there's no way that doesn't, under this administration, spill over into dealing with citizens as well.
And sadly, you know, what else happens is, we used to be the bastion of morality. Well, we never were, but we had the semblance of being a bastion of morality. Now, when people do things to Americans overseas, they just have to point to what we do to our own folks over here, or to people that are trying to get here. So
sure.
I mean, we've lost that ground. I mean, it's not like we ever really were that moral a country. We had a very good semblance of morality, but at least we had the semblance of. And now we've actually shown pictures around the world with people chained around not buildings, but are under overpasses in the weather, and we have them with fence wires. I mean, it's an ugly sight. And while we have a whole lot of Americans cheering that on, the repressives that is, what happens around the world is they're getting a completely new view of what it means to be American. And that has, again, I'm from Central America. I'm from another country. what I knew America to be and what America is becoming are foreign to me. And that is one of the reasons we do what
That
we're
sure is
doing
something,
here.
Yep.
Go ahead,
Well,
Neil.
we used to at least, right, just right on your point. We used to believe, and sometimes it was true, that as painful as it might be, as slow as it might be, Martin Luther King said, "Why we can't wait? We can't wait for someone to be free." But you thought that maybe we were on a track to something better.
We were.
And now we've just reversed course back to I don't know. We'll see how far back we go.
Well, we have a lot of work.
And I wanna.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, I just wanted to make sure we got into this conversation just for the ability for people to understand and give witness and think how they want to respond to their elected officials. There was a story that came out 2-3 weeks ago where the Health and Human Services Department had sent a letter to the Commissioner's Court indicating that Harris County was under consideration for more of these facilities. And Commissioner Haldego, our county judge executive, made a statement, well, we're against family separation. And I'm certain she is. But we need to press folks to take a moral accountability, just as we used to see 30 or 35 years ago. People would go to the South African embassy in Washington and protest apartheid, and even sometimes be willing to be arrested at the embassy.
You're absolutely right. Well, look, Neil, I appreciate you coming on air to give us this information. We need to get into the program, but before I go or let you go, is there anything else that you want to add? It doesn't have to be on this issue. I like all my callers to have a free will to inform us, let us know what's going on in that activist domain, specifically in that progressive activist domain. There's anything you'd like our national audience to know?
Well, let me just stick right on this message. We as individuals need to not let our elected officials say, "Oh, we did what we could to stop the place." We engaged in whatever formal legal mechanism that we did. We can't allow them to escape moral culpability. Our own elected officials, Democrats, people elected in the most diverse city in America, an incredibly diverse county. When it became 16-year-olds instead of 2-year-olds, they said, well, really not my problem, or what is this? And in the end, the only people who are going to be brave about these human rights crimes, these crimes against migrants and immigrants to our country, when we, by our own insatiable appetite for drugs, our own history of intervention in these nations have created so many of these problems, we bear a moral culpability for what's happened as people, and we're going to have to give witness, be aware, and lastly, we're going to have to ask our elected officials to do more than just say, "Hey, I did what I could," or just pretend you don't see these 5, 6, 7, 8 new detention camps coming up in your community. It's really up to us. And I sure do appreciate you having me on and the daily spotlight you shine on all this stuff.
Look, I appreciate you, Neil. I appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate the work that the activists throughout Harris County, who I see work so hard every day. I appreciate the activists throughout the country. And one of the things I wanted to do with my little domain is to give us all voices so that we can be out there and making that change that is needed. Because like you're going to hear later on in the program, there's a hell of a lot to do. And there was a scary article that I'm going to talk about as well that we are going to get into. So thank you so kindly, Neil, for being here. Thank you for what you do, and you keep doing what you do, brother. All right?
Thanks for the opportunity. Very good. We'll keep working together.
You have a good one. Take care, my brother. All right, folks, today's program, first of all, we want to thank Neil for being there. Today's program, very, very important. Title of the show today, what do Republican politicians have against the working class and poor? You might say, Egberto, is that overblown? Egberto, is that blasphemous? Egberto, why are you saying it like that? Egberto, is that divisive? Egberto, you can ask all those questions. Divisive? No. I am not talking about my Republican brothers and sisters, okay? That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Republican politicians that are misleading my Republican brothers and sisters. I'm not asking Republicans to become Democrats. That is not my goal. I'm asking Republicans to join Democrats and everybody else to be what? To vote in our interest as a society. A lot of times political affiliation is a cultural thing. Some people believe they're cultural, they're Republicans, it's a cultural thing. Some people believe they're Democrats, it's a cultural thing. Some people believe they're independents, they're a cultural thing. Some people want to be nothing that's cultural. So I'm not asking folks to join parties. I'm asking folks to vote their interests. I'm asking folks to vote out people that are doing them harm. Because if they're doing you harm, they're doing your fellow man harm. And your fellow man, fellow woman, it's everybody else. Not only Republicans, not only Democrats, independents, Greens, anarchists, revolutionaries, everything. So we have to get that in our heads first. We have to get that in our heads. I am trying to convert nobody's party. I'm trying to convert our integral minds so that we can start working towards what we have to do to move things forward for us all and to prevent the pilfer that's occurring, to prevent the scourge that is occurring. Subtitle of the program today: Republican politicians seems to have a certain kind of hate for the poor and working class. Even as they seem to despise them, they pass policies to make life more difficult. Is that really a family values party? I don't think so. Following, we will be discussing Republican policies here in Texas and throughout the country that is materially affecting the working class, the middle class, and the poor. Why is it that so many refuse to understand that these policies are anathema to families and in effect diminishes our humanity, and not only our humanities but our lives proper? These are not questions. These are not maybe. These are not I think maybe this is dangerous for us. This is not I think just maybe they have it wrong. I'm telling you, they do have it wrong. For me, it's not hard to figure out, but here's the deal, right? If you are pre-programmed by a Fox News or all the family of channels from Fox News whose intent it is to purposefully mislead you with plausible facts, plausible lies that seem to be facts, plausible lines that with their ill intent hurts you. How do we get around that? And that is what this is all about. Let me just give a very classic example. I don't have a blog of the week. I have an Texas Observer article. Not a blog of the week, but a Texas Observer article. And I went to my aggregator, my news aggregator, and I started to look at it. And the first thing that occurred is like, oh my God, right here in Texas too. And by the way, this here that I'm going to talk to my national audience, this is not Texas specific, but this is happening right now in the Texas House. And the title of the article is Texas Republicans' War on Workers Roars Back to Life in the House. This is a newspaper or an article called, or a newspaper called the Texas Observer. This is not some liberal rag. This is a Texas Observer that created that title. That's not one of my leads. That's their lead. If it were me, where it says Texas Republicans' War on Workers roars back to life in the House, I would have put Texas Republicans' constant war and materially affecting death like policies on Americans on their own state continues. I would have had it a whole lot more graphic because I think that is what people understand more. When they find out that these policies, while they don't kill you like a bullet or a knife would immediately or almost immediately, these policies have a degrading effect that continues to hurt you. That much slow motion, but it still kills you. Subtitle of their article is one of the GOP's top priorities: banning local labor protections like mandatory paid sick leave. Stalled for much of the session. Now Republicans are putting their foot on the gas. So you see what they did, right? They have all these policies that they know most Americans don't want. So what are they going to do? They're going to wait till the end of the session, and to get all these things passed, they just zoom it out. Let me tell you, you new Democrats that got to the House, you better step up and you better start talking. And I know quite a few of you, my brothers and sisters. It's time for you to get in front of a camera. It's time for you to go out there and say, hey, my Republican politicians in here are trying to hurt you. And they're hurting their people in rural America. They're hurting their people everywhere. They're hurting you. They're ensuring that family values go out the door. They're ensuring that family policies go out there. Here's the article. It says, the Texas GOP has finally returned its attention to its perpetual war on workers. After unexpected delays with less than a month left in session, Republicans are rushing to achieve one of their top legislative priorities, banning local labor ordinances, including the mandatory paid sick day rules enacted in Austin, San Antonio, and most recently in Dallas. The legislation, which was reconfigured from an omnibus measure in a package of 4 separate bills, passed out of the Senate last month after stalling for weeks amid concerns that the proposal would imperil local non-discrimination ordinances that protect LGBTQ people as well. Now think about that. Now, continuing. Those concerns remain, but House Republicans are nonetheless putting their foot on the gas. The House State Affairs Committee held a hearing Wednesday on the package of preemption bills that would cumulatively ban local governments from requiring employers to provide any sort of employment benefits beyond what the state affords, including paid sick days, advance notice of scheduling, and mandatory water breaks. It would also prohibit fair chance hiring ordinances that protect job applicants with criminal records. I understand why an employee may want these benefits, but you have to understand how Texas works, how our climate works, said Committee Chair Dade Phelan, a Beaumont Republican, what I would call an evil person. Business owners, corporate lobbyists, and conservative think tanks warn that allowing cities to set individual labor laws creates a confusion patchwork of burdensome regulations that kill jobs and hurt small businesses. Let's stop right there. The Republicans used to be a party that said local control, local control, local control. What does local control mean? Local control means different jurisdictions have laws and priorities that are relative to the people at hand. So if you have a society where you have a whole lot of children that need to be taken care of and so forth, you may say all the employers working in this domain need to have these, you may want to say we want to have policies that support families. And if you're in a community where there are old people, that there are no children, etc., you may say, okay, we can allow businesses to operate X, Y, Z because, well, they don't have those constraints of having large families, etc., etc. Local control, that is what Republicans claim they stand for. I'm talking Republican politicians. That's what they claim they stand for, right? But You know, I was on an interview. I did an interview with a British company a few months ago. And he had another liberal on. He also had me as the real progressive Democrat, a middle Democrat, and others, right? And we started talking policies, right? And I started to say that the reasons I wanted Medicare for all and how it would help different parts of society, et cetera, including business, right? So we took a round robin in the way they asked questions. And when they asked me a question, the first part of my answer was always, how does this affect the everyday person that has to get up every morning, go to work, get their children ready, go to work? That is how I see things. In other words, I am looking from a family standpoint. How is it going to affect the family? The other guy, the Republican borrowing on the Republican, what you call libertarian type guy, comes on now and he says, well, the first thing we have to consider is how does every policy affects business in this regard? So that gave me my open door right there. I said, you see, that is the problem. We have been taught, we have been conditioned by the Powell Manifesto as we started to become more humane. We have been conditioned into asking that question first. How does it affect business? I don't care. I don't care. Business is secondary. The first question is, how does it affect families? How does it affect humanity? And then we cater all businesses, we cater all economies around humanity. That is the mishap that we have here. What we have are people only talking about how does this affect the economy? How does this affect business? No. The first question should always be, how does it affect humanity? How does it affect the individual? That has to be the first question if you are going to have a humane society, and then you build around that. And since economies are human-made, since business is human-created, we decide how business is going to operate and not try to fit us into how business works. That would be saying almost like, okay, we have a lot of carbon in the ground, but we have a lot of trees here that produce fruit. But you know, since there's so much an abundance of carbon, why worry about the fruit? Just eat the carbon. No, our body would say, hell no, that's not what we digest. And that is what business is asking. That's what economy is asking. That's what capitalism is asking. They're telling you that we must first see how this false economy that we created function and then fits the things that you do into it. Well, we decided now, Austin decided, San Antonio decided, Dallas decided that in our cities, people matter. And where people matter, if they get sick, we don't want them to come into work sick and infect other people. We want them to feel free to stay home and know that they will still be paid. Why? Because that is our new econ. That is our economy that says people first. And that's a cost of doing business. Just like paying the electricity is a cost of doing business, paying sick leave should be a cost of doing business, and all these other things should be a cost of doing business. When I had my software companies, one of the reasons I didn't have a certain amount of employees, et cetera, is the only way I would have those is if they got the same kind of care that I got. We have to start thinking humanity over business, humanity over business. Anytime business comes before humanity, anytime business comes before people, that's evil. And if you are one who have not taken that stance yet to realize that there's no amount of money that is going to change your relationship between humanity and you and your business. None whatsoever. Continuing with the article. So that's what this clown says. This evil Republican, his name is Chairman Dade Phelan. He says, I can understand why an employee may want these benefits, but you have to understand how Texas works. I can imagine him talking about it. How our climate works. That's what he's saying. Business owners, corporate lobbyists, and conservative think tank warns that allowing cities to set individual labor laws creates a confusing patchwork of burdensome regulations that can kill jobs and hurt small businesses. No, it forces the adaptation of business to a model that is humane. Continuing, the hearing quickly grew tense as critics rejected that argument in testimony as bad faith fear-mongering. Workers talked about being forced to choose between working while sick or injured and losing out on a day's pay. You know what? Why don't they ask the capitalists, why don't you, whenever something goes wrong, why don't you take the cut? Businesses never, ever, ever take the hit. Advocates warned that LGBTQ non-discrimination ordinances in several cities could be gutted, and progressive local officials testified to the importance of local control. So here we have the progressives talking about local controls. Well, you know, when you live in a red state, when you live in a state where the legislation that comes from the top is rather evil, that is when you really appreciate local control. But also, you want federal. You don't want local control when it is these guys, the evil sect, that are making laws that hurt you. That hurt you. And we're going to talk about how these laws hurt you when I'm done talking about this, what's going on in Congress in Texas right now. Anyhow, and by the way, this is happening in Kansas. This is happening everywhere. Everywhere. So all of you that are listening to my voice, go check. Make sure, especially if you're in a state that's called right to work state, what it means is right to work for cheap and right to work to die. That's what it should be called, not right to work state. These are evil beings that provide these types of laws. They have no, let me tell you, Let me tell you, when you have people that can write laws like this, when you see them out in public, you should always go to them and say, how can you be so evil towards families? You should confront them everywhere you see them. In a civil way, of course, in a humane way, because remember, you're not like them. You're humane. You are humane. You are not evil. So you can go to them and nicely, just like I approach everybody in the gym, or I approach everybody in Starbucks, or I approach everybody in a coffee shop. When I hear the evilness out of their mouth, I don't just come out and say, oh, you evil. I come out and say, like the last conversation I had at the gym, I said, do you realize, sir, and I'm always respectful, do you realize, sir, how that makes you look? Do you realize, sir, what that does to your fellow man? Do you realize, and I'm going to read you an article, that not an article, a note that I get. I get a whole lot of mail. A lot of people find my podcast after the show, and I would get mails like, oh, where were you? Or I just found you. I hadn't heard anybody express it like that. And I'm going to read one to you because this one touched me to the heart. And it shows the evilness within our system, but I'll go a little bit further after. Republicans on the committee were often dismissive, even hostile to those concerns, insisting that labor policies like paid sick leave are job killers. You hear that? It's a job killer to care about people. It is. These are Republicans who like to claim they are humane, they believe in family values, but they like to call paid sick leave job killers. If paid sick leave causes job, you ain't got a job to offer. They brushed away the notion that democratic control is critical to local governments. I don't think it's democracy. It's dictatorial, rather, for Republican Phil King Snipe. Oh, that clown. What he's trying to do is dictate what goes on in local communities. An Austin restaurant owner and paid sick leave proponent pointed to evidence that, and you notice here what I said, he pointed to evidence that such policies actually help drive the local economy by increasing worker productivity and reducing turnout. In response, Phelan said, I don't see any logic to your argument. I'm not even going to argue with you. That is the mentality of these renegades. That's the mentality of people like this. Like I said, when you see them in public, be very nice. Just make sure that you inform them that you know they're evil, and make other people know they're evil, and let other people know they're anti-family, and let other people know they're anti-human values. Because what happens with these people is they do evil things in Congress. They come out with their suit and ties, and they're erect, and they come across like, oh, we are in for the family, and we don't want to. We have to bust that false aura. That is an aura anathema to humanity. We have to get rid of their aura of somehow being honorable. They are not. They are evil. And you have to be able to confront them and let them know that you know the policies they put out there are evil, and that they are sold to the plutocracy, that they are sold to those small amount of folks who own them. You have to let it known that you know that. People, brothers and sisters, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or otherwise, this message is not for Republican people and Democratic people that are against what I'm saying. This message is to empower you to get those criminals out there in the State House to do what's right, because what they're doing is completely and entirely evil. And I want to use the evil word as much as I can during this show, because that is what they represent, my brothers and sisters. That's who they are. To be able to do this to another human being, you must be evil. Austin City Council member Greg Casar has led the push to enact progressive policies in Austin and around the state, including the city's fair chance hiring ordinance, a mandatory rest break for construction workers, and paid sick days. When you ran for office, was it really something you looked forward to take away people's right to a water break on a construction site? Casar asked Republicans during his testimony. Preemption of local labor law is not only wrong, it is highly unpopular. In other words, most Texans, most Americans want these particular values within the corporate state. They want it. They're not asking for it. They said they want it. They want it. They want it. Casar cited a Texas Tribune poll that suggests 71% of Texans support paid sick leave ordinances, including a majority of Republicans. You hear that? So when I talk about my Republican brothers and sisters being honorable, that's what I mean. But your politicians are evil. And you have to stop. Look, there may be times, Republican brothers and sisters, that you are just going to have to bite the bullet and vote your interest, vote a Democrat until these guys start protecting you. Remember, I'm not asking you to become a Democrat. I'm not asking you to become a progressive. I'm saying support your own interest. That's what I'm saying. Support your kids. Support your life. Support a better life for you all. Don't let these guys tell you one thing and do something else. Oh, it's going to cost jobs. Really now? No, that's not what they mean. What they mean is they want slavery. They want you, as long as you can come, they don't want an employment structure. You come into work, you get paid, you leave work, you don't. But then at the same time, we have companies like Amazon and all these guys that paid zero in taxes. We give them streets, we give them roads, we give them airspace, we give them all these things that society provides for them. We educate the people that work for them. We invest all of this so that Bezos can have $160 billion, and then he says, but I don't want to pay any taxes. Are you kidding me? That isn't even your money, Steve Bezos. That $160 billion isn't yours. That is the money that all those people worked for you, made, and you decided not to pay them. Let's be frank here. The wealthy didn't get wealthy because they're somehow worthy of what they have. They're just good at taking what you made. We have to learn the reality of how things work. The wealthy is wealthy because they are able to take what you've earned and not pay you. And then they have the high-paid executives that are the guardians to their gate to make sure you don't get what you deserve. People, what we're trying to attain here with progressive media is to tell you the things you're not hearing on these other media, because they would just make it seem like the power belongs with those people who have all the money, who have all the capital. They never sit and ask, how did they get it in the first place? How did that landowner that owns 40,000 acres in Texas get that land? And then now is profiting from all of that. Did he earn that? Did he make that? No, he took it. And then when you try to get a benefit, oh, we can't do that. You got to work for that. Did you work for that land? People, brothers and sisters, Republican, Democrats, and otherwise, you have to remember who is the game. Where is the game? Folks, the telephone number is 646-716-5812. If you want to call in, that is 646-716-5812. And, I'm going to continue with this, and then I'm going to go to something that somebody sent me, right? Phelan also seemed to waive any concern that the lack of explicit exemption for local discrimination ordinances would leave these policies open to legal challenges, and he knows better. Austin first implemented its protections 35 years ago, Phelan said, which have survived in the courts since then. To the LGBTQ advocates who testified, he asked, why would this be any different? Preemption has supposed to be an easy layup for Republicans this session, a way to show the business lobby that it could still be counted on to deliver results after the 2017 session went off the rails. You hear that? So the reason they're doing this is they want to show the business people, hey, we're still your slaves. We're still your slaves, master. We are still your slaves. No, but that's not what you are. You are the house you know what. Because the slaves are really the people that you're trying to hurt. You are just a guardian. You're just a guardian for these guys. That's what you are. But then Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick nixed language in Senate to Brandon Crichton's original preemption bill, SB 15, that had carved out protections for local non-discrimination ordinances. That sparked fears of another bathroom bill fiasco. SB 15 quickly became toxic and it languished in the Senate. Eventually, Crichton broke SB 15 into 4 new piecemeal bills while insisting that he had no intention of targeting discrimination ordinances. The Senate approved each bill along party lines. Meanwhile, major corporations like Facebook and American Airlines said they will oppose the legislation if it doesn't include language protecting non-discrimination ordinances. Wednesday night, the State Affairs Committee reconvened. Just before midnight, the committee approved a substitute version of SB 2486, which preempts cities from requiring businesses to follow certain standards for scheduling. Folks, people, let me tell you, it is important that you don't allow this to stand. It is important that going forward, we make sure to let these people know we are working together, all of us working together to prevent this scourge from continuing, because that's all they are. That is all they are. Before I need to do a quick pitch, I've been forgetting this all along. This is Progressive Radio, and I do need your support. So I ask you so kindly, please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and please become a member. Please become a subscriber to Politics Done Right. It's very inexpensive, and you know what? Becoming a subscriber, you ensure that we continue to move the message forward. You ensure that we continue to inform Americans information that they're not going to get on air, because the plutocracy will not allow that, the corporatocracy, the oligarchy will not allow that, their advertisers will not allow that, but we as sure as hell going to come to you, because we are owned by you. Our only resolve is to you. Our only, what is that word? I forgot the word that I need to use. But we are owed to you. So please go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. If you just want to be a contributor as well, you can just go to politicsdoneright.com, and donate, subscribe, do as you please. But we do need your support. Those of you who subscribe will get immediate access to our book online, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. You learn everything that you need to know about how this economy works and what we need to do to make it better, what we need to do to make sure that it works as it should in a humane manner, as opposed to working right now for one and one kind of folk only. Again, I'm coming to you right now on the telephone. Again, that number is, please go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, you can also get our book, Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. You know, I was an overweight person at times, and blood pressure went sky high. Took care of that. I gave you what I did. Lose weight and be fit now. Say no to snake oil weight loss, because you know what, my dear brothers and sisters, that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is what I did, and you're going to be hungry. It's not going to be easy, but if you follow this path, or you modify it towards the way you're going to do it, I guarantee you, I've lost 50 pounds. I kept it off, and my blood pressure, I got off of more than half of the medicines that I was on. So, this is how it's done. And, of course, I'm writing the book, How to Make America Utopia, How to Make America Utopia. And I'm on the second chapter. I'm trying like hell to release the third chapter. It's online. As I release these chapters, they come out online. Please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Of course, we also have things like bumper stickers and that you can get from us. Just drop me a line with your address, and I'll mail it to you. And also, do remember that our store is open. If you just go to store.politicsdoneright.com, you can get our mugs or T-shirts, all that good stuff. So, folks, we're on the ball. We're trying everything we can to keep us funded so that we can continue doing what we do. We're going to be going different places this summer and bringing news from all over the country. So please, we do need your support. We need your support now. Okay, let's go to the telephones to my dear, let's see, 612, I think that's the number. 612, come on in.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Thanks for taking my call. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Talk to me, sir.
Yeah, I was to your point about this issue when you say about Republicans not being for working class people, and you talk about class warfare.
Yes.
It's something that I find interesting. And when people like yourselves who have these, for lack of a better term, socialist views and feel like capitalism isn't working and socialism would be better,
yes,
I often wonder, do you ever ask yourself that maybe that the things that you're advocating for could actually create more problems and make things worse than the situation you're trying to fix?
Yeah, sure. I've definitely considered that. And the reason I talk about capitalism the way I talk about capitalism is that capitalism as been practiced has been a total failure. And we can actually go across item for item what has failed. The mathematical formula that defines capitalism means that given that the capitalist income or the capitalist wealth grows at a faster rate than the economy at large, means that it is extractive. That's not even up for debate. If the capitalist growth is larger than the growth of the economy at large, then that means that economic system has to fail, and eventually it'll fall on its leg. There is a fix for that, and that fix is called redistribution. A lot of people don't like to hear that word. Oh, redistribution, you're taking away what I've earned and giving it to somebody else. First of all, that's not what it does. What it does, first of all, is it tells the truth. What you have earned is the excess labor of somebody else. When Bezos has $160 billion, that's not Bezos' money. That is the money that Bezos didn't pay his employees that he should have paid them, because they're the one who developed that worth. So that is the reality. What we have been is indoctrinated into a system believing that is the way it is supposed to be. And if you learn something from the time you are 2 years old until your old age, that this is the way things are supposed to be, you start to have it inculcated in your mind that this is the way things are supposed to be. Go ahead, my friend.
Right, I hear that point, but at the same time, on the other hand, we've seen historical examples of when you try wealth redistribution, nationalizing industries, collectivism, for a lack of a better term. We've seen it.
No, we haven't.
I came from a communist country.
No, we haven't.
We've tried it.
We haven't.
This one I would say, because socialists like yourselves always say, oh, what happened in the Soviet Union wasn't real. Communism wasn't real.
It wasn't.
Marxism, that was just totalitarian. But what they failed to realize, this is why I said the point to you earlier about, have you considered that your solutions would actually create bigger problems?
Yes, I have.
That's what happened in communism.
No.
And the reason I say that is there were people like Trotsky and there were intellectuals who were involved in the communist revolution in Russia who thought the very same way you did. They were utopian. They wanted to create a fair and ideal society, all of that. And they thought that we could do that by creating a governmental system in which the government, for lack of a better term, like you said, redistributes the wealth, which means all the means of production is nationalized. It goes through the government's hands, and then the government's job is to distribute it evenly amongst the population, right?
That's not true.
That was what they wanted to do. No, to a degree, that's what they were trying to do. The problem, and this is where the risk comes in. This is the part you got to consider, the risk. The risk is that the government may not always be benevolent, or the people running the government may not always be benevolent, and they may change. What happened? A person like Stalin showed up, who, remember, Trotsky and all the intellectuals looked down on. They used to think he was a moron. They nicknamed him the mediocrity, because they thought he was too much of an idiot to even be in the same class as them. But what he was street smart. Remember, he came from the streets. He was, in our modern vernacular, he was basically a street gangster, and he understood how to manipulate people. And one by one, he killed off all the intellectuals, got power, and then he used that same weapon that they wanted the government the same way they did to redistribute the wealth. He decided to concentrate it and have absolute authoritarian power. That's why most communist governments end up being totalitarian, and because you're giving the government control of everything.
And here's the thing that most people don't quite get, right? And that's the reason why I hate when folks use the examples of Russia and all of that. You know, there are a lot of different. Look, there isn't a country that has implemented what most of us who believe in a true democracy has implemented. Take a look at some of the issues that Richard Wolff is talking about. But let me tell you specifically: do I want a government that controls all means of production? Absolutely not, because that means that I don't want a centralized government that controls means of production. That's not what we're talking about. Let me tell you the kind of things that we're talking about. We divide the economy. We have a bifurcated economy. The bifurcated economy says two things. One is this particular portion of the economy belongs in the public domain. It's not going to be one where profit is the motivation factor. And then we have the other part of the economy that is actually a free economy, things that people don't need. So what we do is we define as a society what are the essentials. Healthcare is an essential. Housing is an essential. Clothing is an essential. A basic level of all of these. We define a basic level of all of that, and the government then controls that. And by the way, we ought to remember that the government, we have to ensure, and that's where it requires an educated people. We ensure that everybody knows that government is the people. You see, what we had to do in America is we had to do something very important. And I see you dropped off the line. Now, you needed to stay on the line because I wanted to ask you a few more questions. But here's what people don't understand. And as soon as we start making a comment about what the Powell Manifesto has done, as soon as we start to tell people exactly how things would operate, the debate on the other side have a tendency to end, because what happens is the following. We have people who have an agenda. And that agenda is to come and they know that you know what you're talking about. They know that the current state of the economy is unsustainable. And they also know that when you come out with that solution, it's one that people are going to buy. So even though he's gone, let me explain how this is supposed to work. Numero uno, you have a bifurcated economy. Numero dos, a part that belongs in the public domain, and the second part that belongs in the free enterprise. And capitalism, no. The free enterprise, where everybody can create their own companies and do whatever they please, sell, supply, demand, all that stuff works. But when it comes to healthcare, every human being in that country knows that they can go to the doctor and be seen. They pay their taxes, progressive that is, meaning if you make a little, you pay a little. If you make a lot, you pay a lot. That's simple. And that goes for certain types of foods. That goes for certain kinds of energy, meaning transportation, so that you can get around. I mean, I don't know exactly how we would implement that part, but those are things that we have to first consider or have to design when we're putting the system into place. But we don't have to make this evolve in motion all at once. We just start dividing the economy into the pieces that belong in the public domain and the pieces that belong into free enterprise. And we start with Medicare for all, we start with family leave and all these other pieces. And that is what makes a humane society. I don't see anybody concerned about Norway falling off the cliff. I want us to be probably a little bit more progressive than Norway, a little bit more progressive than Sweden and these countries, because, I mean, we want everything covered, right? But the money is there. $160 billion for one person owning that's not their wealth. That is wealth that's owed you, because that is wealth they got off of your work, off of your worth, off of your intellect. What these guys are fighting for when they say, have you ever looked at the alternative? The alternative means, you don't want, you want to have a state that doesn't steal from people anymore? A state that doesn't take your wealth away from you, a state where you have to be concerned about your health care. You know how many people are sitting down here knowing that they need to see a doctor, that are scared to go see a doctor? I want to read you something, and this is hurtful. I asked the woman who sent it to me if permission to use it in a blog, which I'm going to write after the show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to read her note, because again, it's heartfelt what she said and how she said it. I won't use her name. I told her I would do it in anonymity. And it goes like she says, I just got this at 1:26, an hour and a half before the show. She says, I am a 54-year-old woman, business owner who lives in Vermont. I found your podcast and was interested in your perspective. I am very concerned about health care. I have a son with MS, and we ended up sending him to Germany to go to collect due in large part with issues with keeping him insured and keeping him on his medication, which without insurance runs $80,000 a year. College in Germany has allowed him to be on the excellent German healthcare system while he goes to college. He is so bright and capable. He speaks 7 languages and is studying linguistics, but he feels that the United States doesn't value people like him with chronic, treatable healthcare issues due to the way we have healthcare set up. We miss him very much, but are encouraging him to stay in Germany for now. In addition, my husband and I are now no longer insured, even though we have health issues, as insurance for us is unaffordable at roughly $1,400 a month, more than our mortgage. This is not a healthcare system. This is crazy. How do we change this? To which I told her, thank you for your message. That is why we created this alternative news network. We must educate Americans to the reality of what is going on. The mainstream media won't, and if we do not understand the system, we vote against our interests. Medicare for all is the answer, and we are fighting for it. Thanks for watching, and please remember, we are fighting for you. And don't let anybody fool you, or don't let anybody tell you otherwise, or try to say, oh, you socialist. Lean in. Don't be worried about what folks are going to call you. Don't be. Lean in. You're for humanity. You want to keep people alive. You don't care about what those capitalist people who and what I'm saying, I'm using capitalist a derogatory portion, okay? You don't care about what they have to say. They don't care about people. They don't care about people. You be concerned about people. Care about people. Be concerned with humanity. Let me get to the website. It's kind of getting late, and I hadn't even touched on that because we had such great conversation. But bear with me 1 second as I do that. I just love my audience. I just love how you guys come by. All right, let's go to the comment section. Let's see. All right, let's see. Daniel Lado says, LOL, not up for debate. Leftist code for I have weak arguments. Are you kidding me? Weak arguments? Weak arguments? Why don't you come on and argue with me? That would be fun to have you, Daniel Lado. It would be fun for you to call in here and try to make your points, but you never do that. Keyboard warrior, scared to talk online. Right, my brother? I love you anyway, but it's okay. You can only be where nobody's going to front you with reality or truth. Michael Cisak. Michael, you have a problem because your ideology is counter to scientific. That's a joke. I know these people very well, and Michael is a very smart person. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see. Lee Grant, it's very scary world you leftists live in. Evil Republicans, immoral capitalists, bigoted. No, I never say bigoted white folks. Not all, not all white folks are bigoted at all. I'm surprised you dare to leave your houses. Come on, Lee Grant. You know what? I got me 3 Republicans in the room. I love it. I love it. Lee, I love you, brother. The problem for leftists is that most people are comfortable. They have housing, employment, food, cars, smartphones. The shops are full of goods. The restaurants are full of diners. We see all the time. The leftist has a frame. You know what? Ask them about their bills. Ask them about their bills and see how happy they are. Okay, 612, you're on. 612.
Yeah, sorry about that earlier. My call dropped.
Yeah, go ahead. That's okay. Did you hear?
I was kind of. Yeah, I heard the points that you made in there. Just it cut off at the end. But I just heard the point that you raised about the commentator at the end there, and that was kind of tied in to the last point I was going to make, which is, and I say this as someone who immigrated to America and
I immigrated as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is something that needs to be stated because, and this is part of why the communist revolution in Russia was able to happen a lot easier. And I noticed that leftists here, they blame propaganda as to why there isn't a mass uprising and people jumping on board with the leftist agenda. And the reason is, like to the previous commentator's point, is that it's not that bad. Right. It was easy to do it in Russia because they were in such dire situations.
You're right.
And the peasants were living so badly.
Yes.
So it wasn't that hard to galvanize people.
I am with you there,
but when
brother.
things are not as bad as you make it out to be. So, and the thing is, as Americans, and this is why I say this as a foreigner myself.
Where are you from
that
anyway?
America is a great place to live compared to most places in the world.
Where are you from?
And so when you look at how, I'm from Ethiopia.
Okay.
So when Americans have this idea that like you have it bad here, the reality is you don't. You actually have it easier here in America than in most places in the world, which is why most people try to come here, like my family did. And if America had an open door policy tomorrow and said anybody can become a legal U.S. resident and become a citizen if you just make it to the land, you would have more than 1 billion people try to come here within the next week.
Let me stop you a second
because this is a great place to live.
Let me tell you, let me stop you for a second. You wouldn't have people coming from Sweden. You wouldn't have people coming from Denmark. You wouldn't have people coming from France. You wouldn't have people coming from all these countries that have a good healthcare system. You know, here's the thing, and you are so right.
But I have family that live there, and I live there myself. I've lived in. Have you been to those countries?
Yes.
Have you been to Norway, Sweden, France, Germany?
Well,
so I've been there. I've spent a lot of time there. I have a lot of family that live there, and I cannot believe how people overhype those places.
Well,
I would never exchange my U.S. citizenship to live in Norway. You're crazy. You would rather live in Norway than America?
The truth of the matter, for what I do, yes. And let me explain certain things.
Then why don't you go there? Why are you here, dude?
Because
you have the freedom to move wherever you want to.
No, actually, that's not the way their immigration system works. There's quite a bit differently. But here's the issue the issue that I'm trying to tell you. When you talk about Americans don't have it that bad, you know, slaves. A lot of slaves didn't know they had it that bad either. right? Until they realize
Oh,
that.
how could you say something like that?
Because I mean that.
As a black person,
and that's
how
what
could you make that
I
point?
actually mean that. I'm not only saying that. I actually mean
You're
that.
trying to compare the living conditions of Americans to what the slaves went through?
No, I am not
You ought
trying.
to be ashamed of yourself. How could you say such a thing?
Let me tell you what I'm saying, and I'm saying no. I'm not ashamed of saying that at all. I am not. In fact, I call the corporate, the people who work for corporation slaves all the time. And let me explain to you. You know, there are several
They're
kinds
not
of slaves.
Okay, that's insulting what people who went through slavery
let me tell you,
actually had to live through. For you to say something like that is watering down what they had to deal with, sir.
No, not at all. Not
you
at all.
cannot compare the two.
Let me tell you something, okay? Let me tell you
Yes,
something.
it is. What are you talking about?
Let me finish.
How can you as a black person say something like that?
Let me finish.
Are you insane?
Let me finish. You notice I hadn't raised my voice at you. We having a discussion, right? Are we having a discussion?
Yeah, because you're not the one that made I'm not the one that made an inflammatory statement like you did, trying to compare Americans today to what slaves had to go through.
Sir, here's the deal, okay? Neither you nor I were ever slaves. Okay? Neither you nor I were ever slaves. So if you are going to take issue with what I'm saying, or if what I'm saying is somehow insulting you, I don't see how that's a possibility, especially since you're from Ethiopia. So that's not a possibility. You know, that shouldn't have gotten to you.
No, that is a thing, because I have people in my family within my parents' and grandparents' generations that were slaves not only in Africa itself, but in the Middle East.
And that's fine.
And there's still slavery going on today all throughout North Africa and the Middle East.
Look.
And I know people personally who were enslaved in Saudi Arabia, and I know what they went through. So you're trying to make it up to be that working a job, working a 9 to 5, to equate that to slavery is an insult to actual slaves who suffer things that are unimaginable.
And let me tell you, that is your call if that is how you want to look at it. I have a definition of the way I am using the word slavery as far as slavery to the corporation, okay? And it's okay for you to be upset about that. It's a free country, and you can decide to be upset about that. I am not, because as far as I'm concerned, in this new world, what I call it is the new slavery. And it doesn't matter if,
the new slavery. Are people getting whipped? Are they getting cut? Are they getting acid poured on them? What are you talking about, man? You have it just for a second. Think about what slaves actually went through. How slaves lived,
sir.
Like when slaves that were married, they had to sit there as their wife is getting raped by the master. For you to say things like that, it's watering down the experience that slaves went through, and to try to compare it today. If you're making the point that people are working a certain amount and they're not making enough, and you want to compare that to slave-like conditions, that's one thing. But to equate the two is it's an insult to what those people went through, man. And as a black person, you should know better, because you should know firsthand and have an understanding of how the slaves actually had to live and what was done to them.
Sir, again, you chose, my friend, and we're going over a little bit, and because I'm enjoying the discourse here, but you chose not to accept the nuance that I'm using these words with, and you chose as well to take it as a pejorative as far as towards the people who actually went through real slavery, the type of slavery that we had before. That is your choice to do, and that is a free country to do.
You're doing the very thing I proved that I said earlier, which is, as a leftist, you consistently make things out worse than they really are. And you just proved it by trying to compare Americans today as if they're living under slavery or slave-like conditions is a perfect example of making things out worse than it really is.
You see, one of the problems
that is unbelievable.
One of the problems that we have in discourse, right? One of the problems we have in discourse is as opposed to trying to find understanding between people speaking, what we get is I'm trying to make a point and you're trying to speak over the point that I'm trying to make. Not once did I try to interrupt you. Okay, what I'm trying to tell you is simple, my friend, and it's very, very simple. In today's world, we had the slavery of the past, and we all know what that is. And I'm not trying to equate what we're going through as far as the slavery that we have to the corporation right now as the same. But what I am telling you is by the way things are right now, people are enslaved by the corporation, and not only are they enslaved by the corporation, they are enslaved by capitalism, and I think I've done a pretty darn good job of proving that. Where you are correct, and I agree with you 100%, because things are not bad enough, because people have been trained that this is how are the best that things are going to be, they accept it. You are right about that. My thing is, how do I have to try to break through to people to say we cannot afford our intellect and our labor to be taken advantage of by the capitalists. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying it is tantamount to slavery. So
wait. But that would be the case in every system. You're talking about have people basically essentially having to work to live.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's going to happen no matter what.
No. What I'm saying, no, sir. Again, please understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand. You're talking about exploiting it for profit. I'm saying even in social
don't you agree with me?
Still
okay, let's
people
stop.
still come up with products.
Let me ask you a question, sir.
Certain people work certain jobs that are lower than other jobs.
I understand that.
That's basic humanity. What are you talking about?
Let me explain this to you. Okay, let's go. Let me give you some good examples here. You go ahead. What kind of business are you into?
I own a trucking business.
Okay, great. So you see, you don't fall into the domain that I'm talking about because you actually provide a real service. You actually work for your money. But here's what I'm talking about. Somebody who drills a hole in the ground on public land, okay? And forever until that oil well is done, that they're making the profit from that well completely with very little taxes on it, even though that should belong to the commons. And I can go one after another in the mining industries and several other industries that are protected by our so-called government because we are capitalist driven. I can go one after the other. Now, you are a different animal. You are in a truck. You make a living. You produce something. I don't have a bone to pick with you. I do have a bone to pick with the way capitalism works. That somebody buys a piece of what controls you. In other words, Exxon, all the people work in Exxon, and a few people sit at their pools while they own shares and forever will collect a dividend. I mean, there are structural issues within capitalism.
You're essentially you want to nationalize things like fuel, right? And just give it out as like a dividend, like they do in Alaska.
I mean, think about it.
That's what you want to get at, right?
That isn't necessary. Look, I don't exactly know that I would want Alaska's model, but I do know that the model that we currently have is wrong.
In general,
in general, I mean, yeah, it's wrong. Don't you agree that it's wrong? I think you have to agree with me there.
I don't think it's wrong because I believe in private enterprise.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I look at the economy as connected, like the job I do. I'm connected to all different type of other industries that work in connection with mine.
Yes.
And so I see that ripple effect that happens in the economy, where if one part of it goes down, it has a negative effect on a whole host of industries.
Right.
And so you may look at things as an isolated industry in and of itself. I look at that industry as having a massive impact on mine and other industries that I do business with.
And I'm glad you said that.
You may look at that. I see that we play a role. Now, if your issue is the fact that people basically privatizing, let's say, fuel or energy, okay, maybe that you can make an argument for nationalizing it, but that's a separate issue. What about the rest of the economy?
Again.
Because most of the economy is product and services. That's what the majority of it is.
Most of it is what, sir?
People either making something or doing something, and then the exchange of those things and the things that are connected with that. None
of what I do changes that at all. And that's what I'm trying. What happens is this. You had, and tell me where I'm wrong, you have a knee-jerk reaction to leftists, okay? You have a knee-jerk reaction, and you don't open your minds that there just may be a pragmatic leftist. In other words, I had a software company. I gave up to do progressive activism. But I do have a software company. I had price and power. And I think you understand the concept of price and power. Those are the only people who matter in this country right now. If you have price and power, even if you give your employee a raise, because you can increase your price in other places, you're never at risk. So I mean, price and power is the issue here. What I'm trying to tell you here.
You are at risk if you're the one that started the business. Just remember that. A lot of businesses start with investment and risk on the front end, like mine did, like many other people did.
Look,
that's why the person owns the business in the first place.
I started my business on credit cards, okay? I had a very successful software company.
Well, that's the way you did it. I mean, other people doing it different ways, right? Some people save up money and do it that way. So
that's not the discussion.
The whole thing requires investment and risk to start any venture on almost any field.
I am not disagreeing with you. Where I am disagreeing with you is after you've overcome your risk and you've been successful, is there some maximal number or is there, where does the excess lie? I mean, are you a truck driver as well, or you just run the trucking company?
No, I do both.
Okay,
but
great.
I'm saying, why
great.
should there be a limit on how much profit or how much success I have? If I happen to have create a successful business or product that a lot of people want to purchase, and it becomes very popular, like let's take Apple as an example. Like they make phones and electronics that a lot of people like and become very popular. Why should they be punished for that?
I'm not saying that. You see, and that
I don't get it. Why?
That is a thinking that you use. You use that they should be punished for it. I said in order for the system to work from a mathematical standpoint, if we have excesses in growth, and I don't know exactly how to manage that. If you have excesses in growth, okay? In other words, if some parts of the economy, usually the 1% to 10% of the economy, grows faster than the economy at large, it becomes extractive and eventually it falls on its face. And that is what has started to happen right now. And you know what I'm going to tell you yourself.
Okay, you're referring to the financial sector.
No,
That's different.
no,
If
no,
you
no,
talk
no,
about in the
sir,
financing
no,
sector, then that's a whole other
sir,
issue. You want to regulate that.
No, it's you
but
too.
the problem with
it
what
affects
leftists
you.
like yourselves are going to end up doing is it's going to be a wide net that's going to affect every private industry there is, period.
No.
That's what's going to lead
Listen to what
we know the trap.
No,
I used to be a progressive, by the way.
Sir, hold
I'm
on.
not some close-minded
I am not
conservative
saying,
who doesn't know where you're coming from.
But listen to what I'm saying.
So,
then. Listen to what I'm saying.
I know where this is going to lead to.
Well,
that's the thing. That's the thing about that you don't admit that there's a slippery slope to your idea.
No. Here's
Initially, sure, it could be just certain areas, but it's going to grow and it's going to encapsulate everyone.
No.
That's what history has proven to us.
Again, you're talking about what history has proven to us as if history is mandated by just mandated. No. What I'm telling you is there are a whole
Well, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
No, and that's exactly right. That's my point. That is exactly my point.
That's why I'm warning you, because I'm saying your ideas, they're a danger of repeating the already failed attempts in the past at collectivist economic models like you're advocating for.
And again, that is why we should learn from history. What I'm saying is not what you're saying. We're talking about models, okay? We know what have failed in other models, and we know that capitalism has failed. Okay? So what we have to do is create...
How has it failed? Wait, time out. You keep stating that like it's a fact.
It is
a fact. What do you mean it's failed?
It is a fact. I mean, put it this way.
Give me an example how it's failed.
It is failed. I mean, if you take a look at the people's living wages, if you take a look at the people in strain right now, if you take a look at the condition of 80% of this country, I mean, you see, you are doing fine. You see, I was doing very fine.
Oh, you're only looking at America only. I'm talking about globally. Capitalism has helped pull billions of people out of poverty, and it's helped increase and develop many nations. Look what's going on in Asia right now. In India, China, and South Korea.
No.
South Korea at one point was at the same point North Korea was just a very short while ago.
No, let me explain.
Now it's got one of the largest, most vibrant economies. What are you talking about, man?
I can talk to you about it cleanly. You take a look. You just mentioned India. India, capitalism is doing the same thing that it's doing in America in the long run here right now. And you have yes, it's great for a sect of people, but for the vast majority of people, it is not. And that's all I'm saying. And all I'm saying is I want an egalitarian
I get that. What I'm saying is it raises the overall standard where, yes, you're right, certain people at the one end accelerate growth higher, and that's one issue. But I'm talking about overall standard.
It is not.
Everyone gets raised. Whereas in the socialist model, what it usually does is it brings everybody down. It claims to create some type of egalitarian society, but what it ends up doing is it creates this equality in poverty scenario that it always leads to, because it's regressive. It doesn't lead to growth and progress.
What makes it regressive? What makes it regressive?
The issue about failed American capitalism, you're not acknowledging the two things that happened to the working class in this country. One were the trade deals. Secondly is illegal immigration. Those two things have had a massive impact on working class jobs and salaries and benefits. You go back to the 1950s, working class people had great pay, great benefits, because unions were able to then come together and collectively bargain for better, salaries and wages and all that. Why was that? In 1955, 80% of the world's manufacturing was done in the U.S. Today, that number is completely flipped.
And why do you think it's
north
flipped?
of 90% of world's manufacturing? Because the politicians allowed for these trade deals, which gave companies the ability to go overseas, manufacture products there, and come in at little to no tariffs whatsoever. So they didn't put in protectionist trade policies that would have punished companies for doing that.
And that's capitalism.
Which is something that both leftists and conservatives have been advocating for years, is to apply more protectionist trade policies.
You just defined capitalism. And you know what? What's the definition of capitalism?
I didn't define capitalism.
No, what I'm saying
Listen,
is,
capitalism is something that has wide, like you said earlier about socialist ideas. Capitalism has a wide-ranging things. It's not a narrow definition.
right? But
You can have modified, regulated capitalism, which is what we've been trying to do in the United States of America for the last 50
Sir,
years.
look.
Because we saw back in the 1920s, capitalism unrestrained can lead to a whole mess of problems. Also,
Say
like
that
we
again.
saw what happened in
Make
2008.
that statement again. Capitalism, what? What?
Yeah,
Make this-
unrestrained, it can lead to
okay,
a whole
stop
host
right
of
there.
problems.
Stop right there.
Just like communism,
Okay,
communism and
capitalism-
socialism
hold
can
on.
lead to a whole host of problems too.
You just
Every
agreed.
system can be abused.
just
That's why
agreed,
you have to have
sir.
certain regulations.
Sir, you just agreed.
Okay,
You
that's
just,
what we have in the United States.
Sir,
That's
you
why
have-
America has such a great
Sir,
system.
you have to
and
have-
it's had one of the strongest
you,
economies the nations in the world has ever seen.
you have to let other people talk, sir. Okay, listen to this. You agreed with me. You agreed with me without knowing you agreed with me. Unrestrained capitalism is capitalism. Restrained capitalism is what we've always talked about. But once you say restrained capitalism, it's an oxymoron. You cannot have restrained capitalism. What you can have is you can have free enterprise. Okay? It's that simple. It is that simple. And what I am for is I am for.
No. You can
Stop.
have laws, man.
Sir,
Keep
sir,
talking about you can have antitrust,
sir,
anti-monopoly laws.
sir.
That's called regulation.
Sir, you have to
You can
be,
do those things. That's
Sir.
fine. I mean,
Sir.
you're the one that's giving this false premise that you can capitalism in itself is one thing. Like you said earlier, if I said to you, communism is what defines
Sir.
socialism. What happened in the Soviet Union defines the entire left's
Hey.
position. You reject that.
Sir.
Because you said yourself, there's different kinds.
Sir,
it's not
it's-
all the same thing.
Sir.
That was your argument against communism
Sir.
that happened in the Soviet Union. Same is true here, man.
you know, it's
You
difficult.
got to be consistent with your logic.
My logic was consistent. It's difficult to speak to you because you don't have a bi-directional conversation. You, as soon as somebody says something, you go off, and that way you stop people from being able to get into the conversation. Do you really want to have a conversation sometime, or do you just want to put out the ideas that you have there?
No, I'm having a conversation with you, but I'm just
No,
thinking
but
on the
what
point
I'm
before
what I'm
move on
saying
to
is
the
you
next
do not.
Because when I talk to you, you name off 3 or 4 points.
No.
I'm
That's
trying to
not.
stay on that
I haven't been
first
able.
point you mentioned
I
before
have
we move
not
on
been
to the
able
next.
to make any points. But we'll have to talk another time because my time is up. I took it by 15 minutes because of you. But I enjoyed the conversation. But let me tell you this: I would like you to call back at some time again. But I'd like to have a real conversation and not you sending out bullet points. I'm concerned that you looked at immigration as one of the issues as far as affecting our country, while you yourself is an immigrant and I am an immigrant myself. I'm concerned about some of the points that you take that seem to come directly out of Fox News, but that's okay. We'll discuss that some other time. I appreciate. What's your name?
I said illegal.
That's fine.
I said illegal
That's
immigration.
fine.
Don't misrepresent my position.
That's
I
fine.
said illegal
What is your
immigration.
name, sir?
And it's proven by the Farm Workers Union in Southern California, led by Cesar Chavez
Okay.
in the 70s and 80s, that they themselves were patrolling the borders to stop illegal immigrants from coming in because the farmers
I don't
wanted
know.
to hire them to undercut the leverage of the Farm Workers Union.
Okay,
The
thank
reason
you.
that farm workers get paid so low is because that they're not able to unionize because of illegal immigrants. But you don't know that history and you don't want to acknowledge it.
Actually, I do know that history, and you're wrong. But we'll talk some other time. And it looks like I got another
Oh,
call.
I just made that up?
No, I
Oh
got
my gosh, okay.
Look,
Fair enough.
look. Thank you so kindly for calling. And you know what? Since I went over on this call, I might as well take the other call. I'm gonna take the other call. Okay, let's see real quickly. 609 coming real quickly, and then I'm gonna leave. Go ahead, 609.
Hey,
Hey,
it's Paul.
hey, Paul. What's going on, buddy?
How are you?
I am fine. Talk to me. I got. You know, we are 18 minutes past the time this show is supposed to close, and you guys are keeping me on. Give me a quick comment.
All right, I'll make this quick.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're arguing about capitalism and different systems.
Yes.
You are aware that capitalism and free markets have gotten more people out of poverty than any other system in history.
Yes, I am aware of that.
Then I don't understand what your argument is here.
Look, let me ask you this. Let me ask you something that's simple, because capitalism, if I have to kill a lot of people to save a lot of people, okay, it was done, okay? And then the next question is, okay, we're at a certain point now. It is time for us to migrate. As Richard Wolff says, And man, I'm going to have to take another call also. As Richard Wolff says, right? Slavery was an economic system. Feudalism was an economic system. Capitalism is an economic system. You know what? They are all born, they served their purpose, and then they died. And just like that, capitalism right now is at the death point. And why is capitalism at the death point? And let me tell you why it is, Paul. And it is really at its death point because and I try to explain that to the caller before, but the caller before is hard to talk to because he doesn't listen. Thank you for you listening. Here's the deal. If you have a fixed economy growing at a fixed rate, okay, and you have 10% of the people that are taking out, let's say 10% taking 10% more every year, and the bottom 80%, they constantly get less because the top are taking out more. Eventually, from a mathematical standpoint, we don't even have to look into individual industries. Just from a mathematical standpoint, that economy cannot stand. And what we are seeing in America right now is the result of that. That's all I'm preaching. I'm not arguing facts that you know. You know that America did very good with capitalism above and beyond everywhere else. Of course, we extracted a lot from a lot of other countries as well. But yeah, for us, it worked very well. But now we are eating our own is where we're at now. Go ahead, Paul.
I disagree with you.
Okay, that's fine.
We've had capitalism. How long? We've had capitalism and free markets
400
for
years.
A little over 200 years.
No, 400 years.
Am I right?
400 years.
From the founding, from the founding.
Right.
There were rich people back then. There were poor people back then.
Yeah.
The more you allow the government to be involved in your life, the less freedom you have, the less chance you have of being, of succeeding.
Okay, I don't agree.
If you look at,
I agree.
You look at.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You look at Bernie Sanders. 7 years ago, he was pointing to Venezuela as an example of how great America could be. And they're on the verge of a civil war this very moment.
And what do you think caused that?
They took all the guns away from the citizens. They can't even fight their own government.
So you think that
their tyrannical government because of that?
Let me just say one thing. This stuff about having guns, you can fight your government is sort of oxymoron, right? Because think about this. The government just have to throw up an F-16 and lay a few bombs down on those people with their muskets, and that's it. So, I mean, that stuff about you have guns to overcome a tyrannical government is a joke. Here's the real thing. The real thing is that you have to take control of government. And I always believe in us all taking control of government. And I always believe in us not just talking about government as a third rail or something like that. We have to be the government. And the caller before, I understand where the caller before is coming from. Okay, I don't have any animosity towards the caller before. What I have is that he has a poor, in my humble opinion, he has a poor understanding of what I am trying to provide or what I'm trying to preach to people. And what I'm trying to preach to people is not to become some crazy socialist Soviet Union, Venezuela, what Venezuela has turned into kind of a place. What I want is free enterprise. I want you, Paul, to have whatever business you want to have. I want you to do whatever you want, but there are certain things I want to partake, that I want to take out of that realm. I want to take out healthcare out of that realm. You know why? Because we all get sick, and if you take a look at the pricing model, healthcare doesn't fall well under free enterprise. And there are industries that work perfectly under it, just not all of them. And the ones go ahead.
Real quick.
Yes.
Healthcare is crappy because the government got involved in it in cahoots with the insurance companies.
I'm gonna have to
let the government get out of the business. Wait, let me finish.
Okay.
Let the government get out of the business of healthcare and let the free market take over.
The free market
prices will go down.
Okay, that's
the quality of the care will go up.
Paul,
let
I only have my line is going to drop. My line is going to drop, and I have two more calls that I want to get. And you guys I love you guys. So let me tell you this, Paul. Next discussion tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll have it on healthcare, and we'll talk about what you just said tomorrow if you call in, okay? Because I really want to talk about that. All right? Thank you so kindly for calling, my brother. You have a good one. All right, let's go to 44. This looks like it's coming from England. Come on in. England. UK, come on in.
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying your talk on your show. Unfortunately, most of these guys on the show, they are not really giving much information on on this kind of topic is really shallow and stuff like that. There are certain things you can put prices on. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
if you've got, and there are certain things you can't.
Exactly.
Like for things like education and knowledge, you can't put prices on those kind of things. So those things, you can't really put them on the marketplace.
Thank
you know
you.
what I'm saying?
You get
When
it.
it comes to things like healthcare. Hello?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So when it comes to things like,
Go ahead, sir.
when it comes to like things like healthcare, you can't really put prices on these kind of things. So it's really sad that these people don't have the information. The other thing I want to talk about is when it comes to like workers, one of the biggest problem workers have is generating wealth. And unfortunately, what workers have been doing for a while now is putting their money into the banking system, which exploits them.
Right.
So what people have to look into is having a banking system exclusively for workers. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So if you have a banking system exclusively for workers, then you can generate wealth for workers. Then you have capitalists, coming to borrow money from workers. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Then the workers can invest money into those capitalists, and then they are kind of like employed by the workers. You get me?
Yeah,
but at the moment, if you think about it, you go to work, you get paid, and then you put the money back into the bank. The bank takes the money, gives back to the capitalist who goes out to exploit the workers. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
But if you look at it, we all got our money in banks. And when people talk about these topics, nobody is talking about banks. You know what I'm saying? All of us have our money in banks.
Sir,
So if there's going to be any work...
I got to go because we're going to lose the signal right now. But here's the deal. I want you to call back tomorrow and listen to the show. It's on every day at 3 p.m. Central Time. So we're over by about a half hour right now. But look, I really appreciated speaking to all of the people today, whether you agree with me or not. Because here's the deal, right? We have to get to the point where we can talk about this stuff and let people understand it's not I don't want to have an ideological fight. I want to have a numerical fight, a numbers fight, because numbers are what matter, not ideology. But thank you so kindly for calling, and please keep listening, my friend, okay?
Yeah, I always listen to you. You have a great show, man. It's good for for people to have an open place where everybody can have a discussion and explore ideas.
Absolutely.
After all, that's how we progress, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's what I tell all. That's why I tell Paul. I think Paul is an ultra-conservative Trumpist. I want to talk to everybody. And the guy who called from Ethiopia, who I think he's a Fox News listener now. But I want to talk to him but he has to let me talk sometimes. He kind of overpowers the conversation. But thank you so. But look, thank you so kindly for calling in, my friend, and you have a wonderful day. Okay.
All right, you too. Thank you very much for taking my.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. Look, we went over by a whole half hour because we had great discussions from great people, and I want to tell everybody who called in, whether I agreed with you or you agreed with me or what. I enjoy this type of discourse. I think this is the type of discourse that America needs to hear. Not just not from saying, oh, he's wrong, he's right. No, we need to come, because there are certain things that I could learn from the guy from Ethiopia who is a trucker, right? He comes out and he says, here's my experience with what has happened here with certain things. And I'm going to listen to him. Of course, he has to let other people talk. Because one of the things with, that's why I said I think he's been into Fox News a bit too much. Because what's happened is he doesn't allow himself to expand. Like, I am willing to listen and look, I am a true progressive. I don't have all the answers.
90 seconds.
I don't know how all the processes are going to work. I don't. I confess that. What I do know is that our current economy is a failure. Fixing it, solutions is what it's going to take. And all of us putting our heads together, it's what it's going to be all about. Thank you so kindly for being a part of Politics Done Right. You know how I'm going to end this, baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.